Suppose we'll get the party started. Grand Forks City Council special meeting, Monday, October 23rd, 2023, under general business number 1.1, welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Wasowski. Here. Weber. Here. Lensky. Kavami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Veen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, under item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Under Mayor's announcements, the Mayor announced that he can't make it tonight, so we're going to move right along. Item 2, action items 2.1. Adopt resolution awarding sale 21 million and change refunding improvement bonds series 2023F. Mr. Orsted, sorry I read that on your behalf. Good evening.
Nope, that's just fine. President Sandy, members of the council. On September 18th, we were before you to approve issuance of the bonds for this year's special assessment projects. Since that time, we did hold a rating call with Moody's rating agency, and we're happy to report that we maintained our favorable AA2 rating with a stable outlook. October 23rd was set as the sale date of these bonds, and bids were received this morning. We have Mr. Steve Scharf of Baker Tilly. He's on the call with us tonight virtually to go through the results of those bids. Ultimately, what I'll be asking or looking for you tonight is to take action to approve the resolution that's attached, awarding the sale of the 2023 refunding improvement bonds. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Scharf so he can go through those bid results with you.
Yeah, thank you, Maureen, and members of the council. I'm pleased to report the sale results that occurred earlier today. As some of you might know, we've seen a rather tumultuous market just in the past several weeks. And increasingly rising interest rates. But I'm pleased to report overall, sort of in light of those conditions, the city received 7 bids on their bonds today, which is certainly more than I've seen lately, frankly. It's usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 bids. So strong turnout on the results today. Like I said, we received 7 bids on the bonds. We had 11 bidders signed up. Again, a really strong number, ultimately resulting in a true interest cost rate of 4.71%. As I mentioned, just given the market conditions, we've seen rising interest rates. That's certainly not something, though I don't have a crystal ball, not something we really see as changing just given current conditions. But overall, a very successful sale today. And one thing that we look at just in terms of level of competitiveness, I've mentioned a number of bids already, certainly being a strong turnout for the city's bonds. But we also look at the winning bid relative to sort of all others, and especially the one right next to it. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Hilltop Securities was the lowest bid at that 4.71%. Interest rate, and JP Morgan Securities was what we call the cover bid, so the one just above that at a 4.73. So the difference here is actually less than 0.02% if you carry out the decimal places. So a very strong turnout again, really tight bidding from all participants today, and again, just a testament to the strength of the city's name out in the marketplace. In a condition where we typically don't see this number of bidders turning up. So certainly something I would mark as a success today. And as I mentioned, getting in at the right time to sell these bonds. We're looking at a Fed meeting next week. We would expect some level of news or announcements coming out of that. That tends to be followed by some pretty strong volatility in the market these days. So certainly good to get in before that meeting in advance of the close of the year. So with that, first I'd like to applaud staff along the way. Maureen mentioned we had a rating call. Some of the outcomes of that rating in affirming the city's credit rating was mentioning the strength in management in the policies and practices that are in place and how they see that as being a positive for the city as as it continues down the road. So with that, again, congratulations on the sale, and I will pause for any questions.
Any questions? I have a quick question. At what point can we refinance these bonds?
That's a great question. These bonds are callable in get you the number here. These are callable in 2033, the year 2033. So December 1st of that year, we would look for an opportunity to refinance on a tax-exempt basis. We do have a taxable advance refunding option, of course, until then, but that's when they're callable.
Great, thank you very much. Any other
Sure.
comments or questions? Mr. Kvamme moves approval. Second by Ms. Osowski. Further comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn by Osowski, second by Weber? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Moving right along. We'll call to order Grand Forks City Council's Committee of the Whole for Monday, October 23rd. Under item 1, call to order. 1.1, welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Weber.
Here.
Lensky. Kvamme.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Veen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Under item 2, updates and informational items, we've got several. Item 2.1, Snowmobile Route Working Group update. Mr. Phelan.
Council President Sandy and members of the community as a whole, thanks for having me. Today, I was going to give you an update on where we're at with the working group. In the staff, I also provided an additional staff report just to provide some general context of where we have been with this working group. We have had several members on this working group, and it's been our honor to have them work really so hard and diligently on this. So as part of the working group, we did include 3 members of our community that live along the Greenway in various areas that are noted in the staff report. We also included 2 from the Technical Advisory Committee, or technical committee members. We also included 3 snowmobile members. We had 2 of which participated. The third did not, but we did have really good participation from the Snowmobile Club. And then, of course, we had our city council members that are most impacted by this decision, which is Councilmember Lensky and Kvamme. So we really had really terrific participation. And then as staff members, we had Melanie Parvey on behalf of the Greenway, since the Greenway is in the portfolio of our Waterworks Department, because it's part of our flood protection system. And then we had Dwight Love from the Police Department, Javen Bedard from Public Health, and then Dan Gosted and I also helped support that. I just want to let you know that weren't able to participate or didn't view the videos. The meetings have been quite constructive. We've had 2 in-person meetings, one here in City Council Chambers and one out at Public Works last week. We also did have a field trip where some members were able to go out on a UTV and go along the Greenway and look at various aspects of that. So we really had some worked on this for several hours and worked in a really constructive and meaningful way as we move forward. I would say the members of this working group and those that showed up just as interested parties had open mind in the sense of how could we make this work as we move forward. And so it was a really good collaborative opportunity and something that we said we would create with this working group with the mayor and the city administration. So tonight I'm really here to report about where I think we are at this point in time. It is late October and November's coming, so time is getting short. So I just want to let you know kind of where we're at and I think where we should be going. There's been a challenge, and even though everyone, I think, has been generally open-minded how to find a solution, could snowmobiles work, it's always generally challenging in the Greenway when something's not created from the start that we're going to have snowmobiles in the Greenway, and that was never the intent specifically, so now it's hard to kind of recreate that opportunity. So it's been a bit of a challenge, and there's certain areas along the Greenway that are more challenging than others. And so one of the areas that have been highlighted, I would call it along the Reeves Drive, Lincoln Park area, where it's a more of a narrower bend through there. Also on the south end, so if you look on south of 47th, again, the greenway gets narrower, and there's some real challenges in those specific areas. And we heard that, and I think when you've received several city citizen comments, a lot of those are either from that Reeves Drive area, Lincoln Park area, or they've been south of 47th, just because it's really a challenging area to try to introduce this. And again, this snowmobile route is intended to go from the south to the north or the north to the south, so you just can't, lift yourself up and go across these challenging areas. There's been a lot of discussion where people have purchased property without having snowmobile routes, and there's been some concern. I think most of those concerns have come mainly in the south end, where people have purchased properties, built homes, without ever the sense that there was going to be a regular snowmobile route. So there's some concerns about, hey, why didn't I know this was the possibility that was going to move our way? There is a real skepticism both on how are we going to enforce this 15 miles an hour speed limit. The 15 miles an hour speed limit is meant because to keep within our noise ordinance. And though we've had Dr. Fire, who's an audiologist on our committee, what we've learned is sound is very dynamic and hard to measure. So even if we did some rudimentary, more so measurements, and I even think what we did is it's going to be really challenging to keep snowmobiles under 50 miles an hour. And so there's been a lot of how do we actually do this. There were some discussions about we've operated the Greenway for 20 plus years now. Thank goodness city councils back in the late 90s, early 2000s built the Greenway. That was not a foregone conclusion back in the day. There were lots of verbal fistfights about what we needed, but you know what? The greater good of us all worked out, and we got the Greenway that the community deserves in this respect. So there's a lot of concern about, we have this gem, we got to be very careful in doing something that would hamper that without some really thought out ways forward. There was discussion about benchmark communities in North Dakota, to include Fargo, West Fargo, Bismarck, where they don't allow snowmobiles in their community. And at the same respect, there's some really great trails both in North Dakota and Minnesota where you can snowmobile. And so why do we have to focus all our energy in this particular area, especially when likely to be legal, most people are going to have to trailer to get to this Greenway route. And so while you're trailing, why wouldn't you just go to a route itself on the outside of the city? There was some discussions, and I think the Snowmobile Club members were really trying to find a solution. And so there was discussion about economic development, tourism, and we can become more of a magnet like other communities like Thief River and those sorts of things. And there was discussions about pros and cons and, similarities and differences in our communities. There was a lot of discussion right now from our police department. How do we respond to rogue snowmobilers? It's hard because there are no snowmobile routes. And so if we're going to, really get on the Greenway from a law enforcement perspective, we need snowmobile routes, and we don't have those right now. So snowmobilers that are out and about, we really have no trail to do much of anything. And so there was seen as a benefit. And then I think it's part of the greater good if you, the thought of, maybe men and women are built to be greater good in their humanity. So if you create a route, you create rules, you create regulations, that most people will follow the rules, and because you've allowed access. So there's some sense of, right now it's a bit of a rodeo out there without a lot of rules. So if you create some restrictions and some rules and some measures, that you'll have a better opportunity to succeed than what we have right now. Because whether we create this route in the Greenway or not, we've got issues. So we heard that whether it's in the south end or in Lincoln Park and other areas, we've got an illegal snowmobile issue where they're disrupting a lot of people. So regardless of what happens, whether a route goes through there or not, there are issues that we're going to have to deal with. I think finally there was a consensus at this point in time is that the Greenway is an extraordinary amenity that we need to preserve. And so that's really heartening after 20 plus years, is that the city got the Greenway right, working with all the various stakeholders in our community. We should really take a lot of pride in that. And in order to disrupt that gem that we have, we really want to be thoughtful. And so I think Dr. Eichmann said, I think in one of his emails, is a lot of times we say, we advise things, well, let's try a pilot, or let's just give it a shot, and if it doesn't work in a year, we can always, decide not to do it. I think in this case, the overall sense is this is too important of a matter just to take an attitude of let's give it a shot and see how it works, because the stakes are pretty high in this respect of just trying something. And so there's a muted view on just going out there to do that across the board of this would be a serious city council action, and we want to be thoughtful about it. The other thing that's come up, and I would say Arch Simonson has been on there, and as many of us know that what Arch had said, and he's along the Greenway between 32nd and 47th, is that he does all various aspects on the Greenway, loves the Greenway, and by the way, has been a snowmobiler his whole life, and I think is even in the Snowmobile Hall of Fame. So he's been there and done that in a lot of different ways. And what he said is the current route that's been proposed, and it's been two proposed from the Snowmobile Club, is not the right plan. And so what he's offered is that he would get more involved in looking at what a route would look like that could be theoretically moved forward with to the city council. But right now he agrees that we don't have the right plan to move forward. What we have decided is that if we're going to move forward, is if it's possible, the snowmobile route has to be down by the river. And the other non-motorized uses have to be up on higher ground in the Greenway, but they have to be separate and distinct. And I think even when you look at some of the parks, it looks like that's been one of the positives, is that they're separate and distinct. And right now, Mr. Simonson is willing to put some time and effort to see how that can be done. He thinks it can be done, but we just haven't had enough time to take a look at if that would work. And again, time is short. So I think right now, the way things sit, moving into November, is there is no viable option to move forward through the Greenway right now. There is a will to try to find a solution. And so my recommendation to you today is that on your screen right here is the current route, which is the one that you approved last year, which shows the route coming in up on Washington Street, I think, to get a fueling station. And then it's along the north end, along Gateway Drive, and then into the Riverside area, and then goes as far south down to Demers Avenue. So that's the current route. And I think the one modification we did make, we eliminated 42nd Street last year, just because of all the traffic concerns. We did add this South Washington for fueling. But I would say between this location on Demers all the way down to the south end of Grand Forks, there's not a route right now that we could recommend to you. But I just want to highlight that there is a will that maybe there is a way forward with this. I think time is short now, and I don't think we're going to be able to put something together in time for that. So that's my briefing right now, just so you understand that. I know the next city council would be November 6th, and I know Councilmember Lunsky and Kavami have been on there and have really served well on your behalf. So with that, I put a period on it and see if the council members see it any differently than I do.
No, I would
Comments, or Ms. Slunsky?
Right,
Yeah.
I would have to agree with you. I think you did a great summary of the group.
Mr. Kavami? Yes, sir?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just add, I think that the intention of the snowmobiler group is 100% positive, and they're just trying to do their activity in a way that you can allow it to grow and prosper. And I feel that it's unfortunate that there isn't a better path. We have hundreds of homes along the Greenway that would be impacted. Do we have hundreds of members of the snowmobile club? And I think, you had a line where you just said the greater good, and we've received, I've received 2 people in support, and I can't even count how many emails and comments we've received against it. So until there's a better option, until we can find a way to connect 42nd better or somehow allow a better passage, I don't see one that makes sense. But thank you for all the effort.
Further comment? So, Mr. Phelan, is there a reason why, like East Grand Forks, along that whole path is much more rural? You would think that it would be much easier to move any sort of a trail onto the east, on the Minnesota side. I don't know if you can you ride a snowmobile over the Thompson Bridge to Minnesota? I don't know. I don't know any of those. I don't have answers to any of that. But I personally, I don't have any appetite for going down this path any further because I know where it ends. We knew where it ended last year. We knew where it was going to end. This is my opinion, okay? I can see the future. I knew where this was going. I know where it's going to go next year and the year after that and the year after that. In my opinion, I don't see the need for us to continue having this conversation because all it does is cause headaches and heartaches. And so why would we want to continue to open ourselves up to the scrutiny when we all know where we're going? So in my opinion, I think we should motion and second to stick with last year's snowmobile route indefinitely and move on so that we don't have to keep having this conversation. But that's, of course, just my opinion. Yeah, Ms. Osowski?
I mean, obviously, you guys know I support the Snowmobile Club and finding a safe route from the north to the south. I really think that, something like this fits in well with the mayor's quality of life that he's really trying to push. And it just is another thing that would, just because other people don't like it, it doesn't mean that there aren't snowmobilers that won't appreciate the route. And it just gives people something else to do, I think, in our community. And it is winter here a long, long time.
Further comments, thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Kfami. Mr. Phelan, the one thing that I did hear, I've heard kind of generally, anecdotally this summer, is that there was a significant increase in illegal motorized vehicles over the course of the summer on the Greenway. I think that is probably a result of having these conversations and heightening awareness in the community that the Greenway's there, and some people just don't like the fact that they're not allowed, and so they do it, right? I think we should continue to look at making sure that we can keep the people that are using the Greenway legally, make sure that they stay safe. I don't know how to do that. I just think that our PD should be making a conscious effort to make sure to keep people safe and secure and make sure people are following the laws. Yes, Ms. Lunsky.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt last year's route.
There's a motion by Lunsky, second by Osowski. Further comments? Yeah, Mr. Kfami?
Just one quick comment. I would just say that the Greenway, from my understanding, isn't really home to any motorized vehicles now, and I think that's the recommendation, and that's what it was designed for. So not singling out one particular entity. Thank you.
I think we should have at some point, we should have a conversation about electric bicycles, because there are electric bicycles that go significantly faster than people power. And I've heard from people that, they will say, well, if you're going to let the electric bicycles, how about a whatever? Doesn't matter. I don't know if we should have a specific speed limit in general. I don't know. I don't pretend to know those answers, but I think we should at least be genuine and true to everyone that's asking these questions and have that conversation at some point.
Council President Sandy,
Yeah, Mr.
before you
Phelan.
vote, there's two items that we'll put that on the Greenway Technical Committee, because that is true. They do buzz by pretty fast, and I know a lot of people enjoy it because, biking with human power through the Greenway can be challenging sometimes. I think the other item that we're going to bring forward to you is down in Councilmember Kavami's area, kind of in that shady ridge, kind of 47th Avenue. There's parts of the Greenway that we left undeveloped that we're having some challenges. So there's some ideas we have back there too. So those are two items that we're having some challenges with, but we've identified, and The Greenway Technical Committees looked at it, and so we'll bring those back under informational update to give you a heads up on both those items.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Further thoughts or?
Mr. Sandy,
Yes, Mr. Weigel.
I just want to be clear, is the motion that's on the floor the same as the mayor's recommendation at this time?
The motion on the floor is to revert to the 22-23 snowmobile route, last year's snowmobile route.
Which is different than the one that's being proposed right now.
Which is different than any route utilizing the South End Greenway.
Councilmember Weigel, I think the mayor, through his working group, we haven't been able to identify a route that would be acceptable to the mayor or I guess anyone else in the working group right now. And so our recommendation would be to, so we have some clarity with the issue, is to continue with the existing route at this point in time.
Thank you.
Okay, any further comment or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 2.2, federal funding request, Project 8720 Urban Roads Program. Well, I'm going to introduce 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, and 2.7. Urban Roads Program, Urban Grant Program, Transportation Alternatives Program, Regional Roads Program, Highway Safety Improvement Program, and Urban Highway Rail Crossing Safety Program. Harold Carter, Mr. Hunter, correct?
Yep.
Nice to see you.
President Sandy, members of council, I'm here for information only on the Urban Roads Program. The proposed project would be South 48th Street from Demers to 11th Avenue in the industrial park. The proposed cost is $8.3 million. That is 80% federally shared, 20% local. Any questions on that one?
I don't think so. Yeah, Mr. Kavami? I think, why don't we take them all together? Yeah.
Okay, I got three of them, and then Joel
Yep,
has the other three.
Go ahead, 2.3. Thank you.
Urban grant. This is 80% federally, 20% local funding again. This is for downtown locations in the state. The proposed location is North 4th Street from 2nd to University, right in front of City Hall here. Proposed cost is $3.3 million. It's another beautification. Any questions?
Yeah, that's the extension of the downtown beautification that we've already done on Demers and over on Second, so it'll be getting
And then
bump outs and
Next year will be
new
in
lighting.
front of Central.
Great, so that's great. Awesome, thank you. Anybody
And
else?
then the third one I got is the TA, Transportation Alternative. This is for bicycle and pedestrian projects, scenic and environmental. Again, 80% federal, 20% local. This is east side of South Washington from South End Drainway to 46th, tie-in South End neighborhoods to Choice and Icon. Any questions?
No. Thank you. Mr. Hunter, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Krenko?
Good evening, President Sandy, members of the committee. With me tonight is Joel Holweger. He's been with the city now for about 4.5 years, and the reason why you're only seeing him for the first time here tonight is because he was recently promoted, so he gets the fun responsibility of coming to committee of the whole meetings and giving some presentations. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joel.
Mr. Holweger, good evening.
Good evening, President Sandy, members of the committee. What I have before you are a few staff reports here, pretty cut and dry annual things we do here. The first one is the Regional Roads Program. We do that in conjunction with North Dakota DOT, with Federal Highway Administration funding. So these roadways that are eligible for this include Gateway Drive, Demers, 32nd, et cetera, things that are in the North Dakota DOT's privy. They'll go into more moving forward, but these cost shares, depending on the road classification, will either be an 80% federal, 10% state, and 10% local share. And those are for, your secondary regional roads such as Demers Avenue, Washington, North 5th Street, 32nd Avenue, or it'll be an 80% federal share, 20% state share, 0% city cost for primary regional roads such as the US 2 Gateway Drive or I-29. So we have 8 projects in this staff report that we'll be trying to move forward. There's more details within the staff report. Again, informational only. Any questions on this one?
Any questions? No? Thank you.
Next one is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. This staff report, we review potential projects. Again, these are in conjunction with North Dakota DOT and be funded through federal grant funding. Roadways eligible for this under the HSIP are, they include classified streets. They'll end up being vetted by you guys at a later date, the council, as well as through the MPO. Staff is recommending submitting for 3 safety improvement programs in the city over the next in 2027, 2020, 2029. These funds are available for preliminary engineering, construction engineering, right-of-way utility location, and construction for projects under the highway safety program. These are eligible for 90% reimbursement. Again, information only. Any questions on this one?
Questions? No? Seeing none?
Okay.
Thank you.
The last one I have for you is a federal funding request for railroad crossing rehabilitation. This one is again through North Dakota DOT, and they asked us to look at any of our potential railway crossings in town that potentially could use some safety improvements. Similar to what's going on right now on North 6th Street. We have one project we've identified, the rail crossing at US 2 and Gateway on the Mill Spur. That will be improving or reconstructing the crossing plates as well as the transitions up to that crossing. And there's more information in the staff report if you need it. Information only. Any questions?
Any questions? I actually have a question, Mr. Krenko. On the urban roads program, if I recall correctly, we were reprioritizing North Columbia Road to the industrial park, correct?
That is correct.
And that absolutely is a good use of funds because it really desperately needs to be done. On North Columbia Road, however, that at some point needs to be done. So we're just perhaps moving that a year in the future.
I believe our prioritization at this point in time is we have that segment in the industrial park from Demers to 11th Avenue South. We'd then do the following part of that from 11th Avenue South to 17th, and then we'd be looking to possibly go back to Columbia shortly after.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you. Moved by Osowski, second by Kavami on items 2.2 through 2.7. Any other comments?
These all information only?
Are they? No, these are not information only. They're updates, but you do want approval on those, do you not, Mr. Krinkle, to approve the concepts, the rearrangements?
For these items, we're only looking for initial feedback. We'll be
Sure.
bringing these back at a later date for approval.
Okay. Anybody have any problems with these? Great.
I will move that they were presented very well.
Yeah, they did a good job. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Hallweger and Mr. Hunter. Appreciate it. Okay. Under discussion items, 3.1 amendments to CDBG consolidated plan annual action plans. Ms. Richards, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. In advance of starting our 2024 CDBG allocation process and preparation of that 2024 annual action plan, we do have a long list before you tonight of amendments to previous annual action plans as well as our 5-year consolidated plan. Within this list of 7 items, there are a couple of pretty substantial ones as well as some pretty minor ones. So my plan was to run through those, well, all of them fairly quickly, especially, especially the minor ones, and then certainly answer any questions or specifics you might have as I go along the way. The first one on your list is some funding that was allocated to Prairie Harvest Mental Health in 2021. They were awarded $10,500 to make improvements to the entry to their facility up on North 3rd Street. That project kind of got tangled up in COVID and delayed greatly, and then the costs exceeded the budget greatly. So Prairie Harvest has requested that those funds just be converted from capital to operating funds, and that would be an amendment to our 2021 annual action plan. The next item on the list is funding that was awarded in 2021 to Red River Valley Community Action. They got $91,000 to make some improvements to their facility on Gateway Drive. At that time, that was a pretty new facility for them. As we got into the kind of nuts and bolts of the environmental review on that project, its location by the tank farm, railroad tracks, industrial uses, high volume roadways, just it made it clear that the mitigation that would be needed to go forward with that project would greatly exceed the cost that was allocated for the project itself. So the request is to cancel that project. Item 3 on your staff report is another cancellation. That was 2022 funding of $45,000 that was allocated to YouthWorks for programming. Unfortunately, they closed their office before a grant award was even executed, so again, the request is to cancel that project. Item 4 is additional funding for the Ruth Myers Adolescent Treatment Facility. That's a project that goes back to, I think, 2018 was when we first started talking about that. In 2022, they were the Grand Forks Housing Authority, who owns that facility but doesn't operate it. They were awarded $963,000 for an expansion and rehab. When bids were opened on that project at the end of August, they totaled over $1.5 million. So the request is for an additional $200,000 to make sure that that project will move forward. The two projects that I just talked about for cancellation, that would fund the bulk of that $200,000 that's requested, with the remainder coming from unobligated CDBG carryover. The next two items, 5 and 6, are those kind of housekeeping items. These were both recommended by our HUD rep just to kind of clean up some of the outputs. I hate to use this crazy HUD terminology, but the upshot is, since we have started using community service grants rather than CDBG funds to do public service or operating support, they're not generating beneficiaries for the CDBG program. So our HUD rep has recommended that we just reduce the outputs in that 5-year plan to match what we have actually accomplished. The other one is similar in that it's an amendment to our citizen participation plan, which is an appendix to that consolidated plan, to just clarify what our process is like for a competitive application process as opposed to a set-aside, and some clarity on when we hold public hearings. The seventh and final request is our most substantial. That one is a request to suspend the HomeSense Housing Rehab Program and basically reallocate those funds, both the funds that are sitting in the revolve fund now and future revenue from loan repayments, to regular CDBG program. This is a program that we have offered in partnership with Red River Valley Community Action since, we started funding it in 2006, generated enough revolve funds to begin funding it using those revolve funds in 2010, and a lot of homes have been rehabbed through that program. As your staff report points out, in the early years, we were getting 6 to 10 rehabs done a year, and what have we got here? Between 2010 and 2014, 46 homes were rehabbed. Lately, the output has just dropped off dramatically. Only 4 in the last 5 years, nothing this year, and only 1 completed in 2022. So part of this is, as we all know, construction climate is difficult, and Red River has had a lot of staff turnover. So I think while it's been a great program, they are more or less relieved to have this taken off their plates at this time. So the recommendation is to transfer the funding that is sitting in that revolved fund into our 2024 allocation process to use it for projects. and then treat any loan repayments just as regular program income rather than rolling them back into that revolving fund that is set aside for housing rehab. Part of the problem, as well as this program just not really yielding any output, having that large balance in the revolving loan fund is a real problem for our overall CDBG program, in that HUD looks at our timely expenditure of funds. And when Red River isn't rehabbing houses, those funds are just sitting there causing problems for that. So that is a lot of words in a lot of jargon. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. In terms of that Ruth Myers facility and the $200,000 ask, we do have Terry Hansen if you have any questions about the specifics of that project, but I'm certainly happy to answer anything as well.
I'll move approval.
Mr. Weber moves approval. Is there a second? Second by Kavami. Yes, Ms. Osowski?
So number one, where you're going to convert the money to help with operating costs, correct? Is that normal that we do things like that? And are they going to come back and then ask for more money to help improve in the future then?
Well, it is pretty unusual to convert from a bricks and mortar project to operational support. Usually those bricks and mortar projects are pretty substantial, so a $10,000 project in this case was not nearly sufficient, but in the scheme of our CDBG program, these are pretty small dollars. They're certainly able to apply for funds in the future. I don't know that they intend to put that rehab project on their short list. The last time I talked to them, they've got issues with elevators, so I think if they were going to submit for another project, it would be something much more substantial.
Can we save that money for them then in case they come back to us in the near future and want, oh, we already spent the money? So I guess I don't understand how they can.
Ms. Richards, we already gave them that money, right?
Well, we have awarded it to them. It hasn't been spent, and they have requested that it be converted in use from this doorway project that isn't going to happen to operating funds, which they can use immediately.
I don't agree with converting it to operational funds, I guess.
Well, the option would be then to cancel the project, and this was their request, obviously.
Right. But they don't have a project, right? Because
Correct.
they already canceled the
happen.
project. So I guess I don't know why we're still awarding them money if they canceled the project that we gave them funds to help support, and why then we switch it over to operational costs. I disagree with that portion of this.
That was their request. The alternative is really to cancel it, and then it would become unobligated funding. So obviously, from their point of view, they would rather have access to the funding than lose it.
Wouldn't we all?
Right. And if it was a larger dollar amount, we would probably not consider it, but
it's still taxpayer funded, you know? I mean, it's still our tax dollars, regardless of what the amount is. I know it's a small drop in the bucket compared to the rest, but I mean, I think that if they canceled the project that they applied for, then I don't think that they should get that money.
President Sandy?
Yes, Mr. Weigel.
Ms. Richards, did they say operationally what they plan on using the funds for? Is it to get a new therapist? Is it something else? I think I somewhat agree with Ms. Osowski, but I can also see a positive that, you know, there is mental health issues throughout the community, and so I guess I'd be more interested in, besides just the general operationally, what part of the budget are they going to use it specifically for?
In terms of an application, I think they would just request for general operating funds. We just talked to the folks at Prairie Harvest today, and they are kind of in the middle of converting from their previous model, which was basically providing supportive housing and kind of life skills and on-the-job training, to more of a clinical approach. And so they, like a lot of agencies are struggling with staffing. So I think if they were granted this request, they would use it for salaries.
Further comments? I have a question for Mr. Hanson. You can, Terry, why don't you come over to this side and push the button? No, you got your own podium. I know. Welcome to City Council Chambers. I think this is the first time you've been here.
It's the, well, actually, I was given a tour the other day.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. General question, if you're estimating a project in 900,000 and the bids come in at 1.5 million, how is 200,000 going to cover a $600,000 shortfall?
It reduces the amount of bank debt that we'll have to take on in
I
order
see.
to complete the project.
So you're going to move forward and debt service the additional
We
400,000?
will still have debt service, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. These are nice digs, by the way.
Yeah. It is much nicer.
Push the button off, right?
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Osowski dissents. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Richards. 3.2, appointments to Historic Preservation Commission. There's one new appointment and one reappointment. Anyone have any concerns?
Move approval.
Moved by Kavami, second by Osowski. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. 3.3, project update, Project 8653, reconstruct North Washington from 1st Avenue North to 8th Avenue North. Mr. Krenko.
Good evening, President Sandy and members of the committee. With me tonight online is Michael Johnson with the North Dakota Department of Transportation and also Dion Warziniak with Houston Engineering, giving a project update on the North Washington Street Reconstruct project, which is currently under project development. Wanted to make sure we got this in front of the City Council as this project is getting into the public input portion of it, making sure that City Council is aware of kind of the scope of the project, what we're looking at. One of the big things on this is that this is a follow-up reconstruction project. Over a decade ago, the MPO ended up looking at the North Washington Street corridor, and I believe at that point in time, former council member Bierke was a part of that as well. And with that, I will turn this over to Dion for the presentation.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening, Council
Good
President.
evening. Thanks for being here tonight.
Committee members. We've got a short presentation, I guess, tonight. We're just basically getting into this project. It started this spring. Like Dave said, we just want to get you up front what's going to be the plan of this project moving forward, and this there's going to be some difficult decisions in this project as we get into the design and the final design that we'll be bringing forward to the council at future meetings. Just a little bit of corridor history. As Dave mentioned, this project kind of started in MPO's study back in 2011. 2012 was the final report. It studied 17th Avenue South to 8th Avenue North. It was a comprehensive study that kind of divided the corridor up into several segments throughout that. So they studied that and different strategies for different pieces of that corridor study. Tonight we're just going to focus on the project we're working on is the 1st Avenue North to 8th Avenue North. A little bit of recent construction. The roadway itself is US 81, which has been constructed back pre-1950s. It's had several enhancements and widenings. And recent was Mill Overlay in 2018, which was a project that was expedited just because of the pavement distress out there. And in 2020, there was a pedestrian curb ramp improvements along the corridor. And currently where we're at, it's, as Dave mentioned, we're in the reconstruction project of this, and we're in kind of the preliminary design phase. Project started in 2023 with this summer and past spring, we worked on field review, survey, environmental project portion of the project. And today we're at the public engagement phase where we're basically presenting to the public kind of the first time with the council, and we're moving into business one-on-one meetings in the next couple of weeks. We have scheduled a business owners meeting kind of at the Hive. It'll be November 8th to kind of go through the project with the business owners first before we get into the public input meeting. That's scheduled right now tentatively for November 28th, also at the Hive. More information will be coming on those two meetings, but there will be basically, the business owner meeting will be reaching out to each business one-on-one just to kind of let them know what the impacts are to their project and to their basic access as we get into more discussion tonight. Environmental document and the final approvals will be coming through the City Council and the North Dakota DOT in April of 2024. with our plans and final completion of the bid ready set by June 2025. Construction right now is to be determined, depends on some of the federal dollars and how it gets allocated, but we're looking at probably, it's going to be 27, 28 potentially for construction on this corridor. So backtrack to the 2012, just to kind of summarize that was a 400-page study that was done in 2012. I'm just going to summarize that in a paragraph here, which would take more pages than this what I got shown here. But some of the strategies that were included just on our corridor were phase reconstruction, which is evident. We're working on a project that's adjoining to the project is out for bids right now from 5th Avenue South to 1st Avenue North. Part of the strategy was to consolidate, relocate, and remove access points, which we'll get into probably the bigger discussion tonight. And the asterisk here on the bottom is that from the study, it recommended 100% closure of all the access points that are intersecting with US 81 or North Washington. I also talked about revising the intersection traffic controls, predominantly at 2nd Avenue North. Sidewalk buffers, right now in the photo on the bottom right, kind of shows that there's really no buffer. Some of the sidewalk that is attached to the back of curb makes pedestrian access and kind of your route through there difficult for pedestrians. We're looking at putting in a buffer along that is what was recommended. Also ADA compliance, which we'll discuss a little more. ADA compliance basically is your 2% cross slope on your sidewalk through any area that pedestrians will walk through which we call your PAR, your pedestrian access route. It also talked about alternate bicycle routes, which have already been implemented. Kind of showing red on the bottom exhibit there is that the bike route goes along Washington and then it turns west on 1st Avenue up to North 15th Street, and that basically shares the roadway all up to 8th Avenue North and then joins the path along Washington farther north. So there's really no bike activity along this corridor. And as we discussed, there'll be probably no proposed bike activity along through this with our project also, just because it's already got a dedicated route and it's due to some of our right-of-way constraints. Fast forward to the 2023 construction, kind of our project summary, what's included with the project at hand. It's a full roadway reconstruction. It's a 5-lane section with 11 or 12-foot driving lanes. We're kind of in the concept phase right now. We're looking at 11-foot driving lanes and a 12-foot left turn lane. Paved boulevards to reduce the maintenance out there for city staff and the business owners out there. We're looking at either 2 or 4-foot boulevard area, which is depending on how wide we can make the lanes fit within the corridor. Looking at drainage improvements, which include storm sewer updates and replacements in most areas, updated street lighting along the corridor, and new traffic signals at University Avenue and 5th Avenue North. Include that as 5-foot sidewalks, and as of right now, we're excluding any right turn lanes just due to the warrants on them. They don't meet any design warrants for right turn lanes, and also the right-of-way would be substantial to put right turn lanes at most likely University Avenue.
So can I ask a question?
Yep.
So we're asking to reduce the ingress from Washington into the private businesses, but then we're not going to provide right turn lanes so that they can get through the road and then get into the businesses?
I'll cover that here a little bit, but yeah, the accesses to businesses will be all accesses right now have corner lots. They have access either through the alley or through the public streets. So right now they all have.
From the side streets, not from Washington though.
They have access from both Washington
and. They currently do, but after reconstruction, you said that we wanted to reduce or eliminate the access points, right? So what I'm saying is if we're going to reduce the access points, shouldn't we be giving right turn lanes so people can get off Washington and get into the businesses? So let me ask a different question. Let me ask it a different way. Is there any way we can provide the right turn lanes? I see that you're excluding right turn lanes. Yes. Can we include right turn lanes?
That'll be to substantial right-of-way acquisition or reducing the roadway down to a single lane possibly. There's really no footprint. We got 78 feet of right-of-way right now to work with, and you got 60.
You're saying there isn't enough room for it?
Correct.
Got it. Specifically at University, right? Because of the car lot, there just isn't enough room.
You'd be probably buying some of these properties because you have to add another 12 feet of right-of-way, and probably the whole length of that one parcel and extend into the next parcel even. Minimum right turn lanes are about 100 feet long, plus your taper another 100 feet, and our blocks are about 360, so it gets to be, it's just a tight corridor to put right turn lanes anywhere in here, so. Yeah, we looked at that was the first thing we kind of tried to figure out. And it is doable if we can buy some parcels in right-of-way, which is
probably not doable.
Expensive, and it's an option, but.
Thank you.
Everything's on the table.
Yeah, thank you.
So with that, then we look at ADA compliance, and just looking at the photo there, as mentioned, we need 4 feet minimum to get pedestrians through those access. We have street lights right now concrete that doesn't meet any standards. And also, just looking through the driveways, we have driveways that are 5 to 8, 9%, so you can't get ADA access through those driveways without considerable rework in a lot of private property behind the right-of-way. So ADA compliance and access management kind of going hand in hand on this project. Part of the access management is to improve the safety in corridor and also just the operations of it. You have traffic slowing down, making turns into unexpectedly. You have side ingress, egress from people leaving properties, so you know it kind of compounds, and so everywhere you have these driveways, you can induce another conflict or another risk potential. So removing them provides you a little bit more safer corridor, reduces the conflict and cross potential through there. And the high density exceeds the spacing restrictions. Currently, the North Dakota DOT restrictions on the corridor as such, with the principal arterial at 35 miles an hour is 625 feet. So even our blocks and that are exceed that there. So you look in the south end of Washington where you kind of got the frontage roads and things like that. We have driveways, or we'll call them approaches, that are well past that 625. But up here we've got developed corridor. We're not going to be closing public streets, but it's an old neighborhood that's been well developed. So with that, the question would be is during construction, how are we going to maintain construction traffic through here? It is one of the only northbound, southbound routes through Grand Forks other than 42nd and the overpass. So we'll phase this in head-to-head traffic through here. So we'll maintain access on Washington in both directions. Probably working on the other 2 lanes, and the center lane will be kind of our transition to build the road in halves. Likely will include side street closures and detours in all the side streets except for University and 5th and 8th. So we already have signal access to get across Washington. And you also, 8th Avenue is not part of the project. The road just, it stops short where the concrete section ends, south of 8th Avenue. So as we mentioned, the right-of-way is 77.5 feet wide, and trying to put in 5 lanes of traffic, curb and gutter and sidewalk, and then having to purchase additional right-of-way through the entire corridor, it's going to be difficult. We have businesses that are right on the back of the right-of-way up at 5th there. So trying to fit a lot of stuff in a small package and trying to still maintain a safe corridor is part of the whole concept of the project, and the access management is a key component of this, and trying to work with the businesses. We want to be safe with the corridor, and also want to work with the businesses. It's going to be difficult decisions to be made down the road. Like I said, they all have public access from the side streets, which is recommended by Federal Highway, and to not have driveways directly to a principal arterial road. But with that, I guess I'm going to kind of go into just a little bit of the concepts we have right now, kind of showing some of the complexities we do have. So starting in the south end is 1st Avenue North, and that's kind of where the current project would end. They're going to build a 3/4 access at 1st Avenue North with that project, and we would tie into that. So for the most part, we'll be maintaining the same configuration as there today. We'll have sidewalks, we'll have berm, we'll have 5 lanes of traffic. But you can also see the public streets are kind of shaded in green, or in the gray, and then the alleys are in orange. They'll maintain and be updated to current standards and replacements. But all the red driveways are what we're looking at, trying to improve on those access points, and what we can do. The desire is to remove those, or if we can consolidate something, but the desire is to take them out according to the previous studies and even the current studies to reduce that ingress throughout the corridor. So our biggest issue is between 1st Avenue North and 4th Avenue North. Looking north of 4th Avenue, we basically have 2 parcels that have 2 driveways each that also have access from 7th Avenue and 4th Avenue. So that really is the kind of the corridor in a nutshell. There is an option that is also in the traffic operation report that shows, in addition to having a 1st Avenue North 3/4 access, is to put a 3/4 access at 2nd Avenue North. With the removal of that traffic signal, you're going to have traffic queuing on 2nd Avenue. It's going to be long delays at peak hours in the morning and afternoons to make left-hand turns or through traffic. So traffic operations is recommending an option to basically move that traffic up to University Avenue, where you have a signalized access. With a 3/4 access in there, you end up with raised medians throughout the corridor from 1st Avenue up through University Avenue, just to put that, to have that traffic barrier when you have the 3/4 access through there. So that is an option. With that alternative, it still fits in the corridor without right-of-way, but you lose all your boulevards. You have basically a sidewalk attached to the back of your curb, and you have 5-foot sidewalks still only. And with that, we would still need right-of-way to find a place to put all the street lighting, because there's nowhere to put it in this kind of layout. So kind of in the concept right now. A lot of it will be fleshed out once we get through preliminary engineering and starting to talk to the businesses and how that's going to come about with the decision we make on driveways. Similar, there's no really other median section to the north. We only have the 2 parcels to work up there. And there's not a lot of traffic issues up on that end, but it's mostly, our ADT is about 20,000 on the south half of the corridor. It's about 13,000 at 8th Avenue. So it does really drop off between First and University for the most part. So with that, I got kind of end our presentation tonight. If you have any questions where we're at and moving forward.
Good information. Yes, Mrs. Osowski.
So you said that you wanted to remove the driveways mainly like on Washington, but I saw 2 on there that weren't, 6 and 13, I guess 3, 12. So how come those can't stay there?
Well, 6 has a driveway just to the east of that then, so there's a lot of redundancies in driveways out there. Some of these driveways aren't used right now. They're along some of the parking lots. They have cars that are up against them. 12 has got a driveway farther east. So we're trying to remove some of the redundancies and some of those driveways really close to intersections also.
Okay. And I don't like these 3/4 things either personally, just so you know, because I like to go whichever way I want to go, and I don't want to be told you can only go that way. So I don't like those at all. And I mean, does it really get that busy there? I mean, I drive this area all the time, and I've never had issues like crossing or, you know, having to wait a long time where I just don't understand why you'd need that there.
The traffic operations report, the corridor is designed for 2045 traffic volumes, so whether or not, you know, those numbers, it's modeling numbers to get to 2045. Just from the report that they show on the traffic at peak AM and PM hours, those level service delays are in that 900 to 1,000 seconds. So you're looking over 10 minutes is what the modeling is. Basically, it's telling that there's a car coming all the time. Where the queue is pretty short, but it's like there's like a car about every minute, and you wait to get out there. So it's traffic on the side streets is relatively low, but you got the volume on Washington. This kind of makes those side street ingresses difficult.
I don't like it. But thank you.
Yes, Ms. Lensky?
Maybe a silly question, but can you ever get rid of the alleys or have a dead-end alley?
I suppose you could vacate the alley and dead end that there. That's maybe a good question for planning if they ever want to close alley. Right now there's a lot of utilities that run through those alleys. It serves as access, and some of them are paved, some are unpaved surfaces to get to properties, but would that be in lieu of getting rid of driveways, you're thinking, or closing everything?
It is a lot of entrance exits, and it just seems, I'm trying to think of the alleys. I personally have never used an alley over here, but I was just curious, like in the 2045, if we're anticipating so much traffic, is that something you want to look down the road? Do we need the alley, every alley entrance?
I know some of the alleys do probably serve for EMS services also, so if you do have to come off Washington, your limited access to get to some of those places might be part of an issue. Since it is well developed, there's really no other place to get back to them back properties also.
Additional questions? Mr. Weber? Yes, sir.
Will there be, other than these meetings, will there be additional opportunity for public input? And when,
Yes,
when and where will those be?
We've only scheduled the one public input meeting right now. We'll have the business owner meeting, and then we'll have the November 20th public input. But once you get through that, I guess we'll be presenting to council. If you have comments that come through that, we can also address them there. But eventually, we try to wrap up those public input meetings and then get through the environmental phase to get the approvals. But if we find out what kind of input we have, we definitely can have more input that we need to.
Thanks.
Mr. Krenko, are we notifying all the businesses along that stretch that are affected? Are we going to mail them an information like this presentation and let them know when the public input meeting is?
What I'm planning to do after today, now we got a list of all the businesses and all the registered agents, and also all the registered agents of all the properties. Some are owned by individuals, some are owned by entities. So we're going to make phone calls, and we're going to take our WSB is our right-of-way assistants. They're going to come with us, and we're going to go business to business one-on-one with them, figure out who needs to get the mailings, and we're going to be sending postcards in advance of the business owner meeting before November 8th. So we send it to all the business physical addresses, registered agent addresses, basically everybody who we've got tied to these parcels, so that they will get some kind of notification one way or the other.
That's great.
Whether we
news.
can make them come to the meeting, that's...
No, I appreciate that, Dion. At least we're doing everything we can to let them know. Thank you very much.
I think they should all be mailed something regardless of if you talk to them or not. That's just my
Well,
opinion.
we'll be mailing it to all, we just want to meet, we definitely want to meet with the ones that got
And then-
that are in red.
Like, are we allowed to just take away all their driveways? I mean, I kind of or like, who owns the driveway? Does the city own the driveways?
It is, well, we're talking to Grand Forks, North Dakota DOT District, there is no permits out here for any of these driveways.
So they're grandfathered in.
So whatever took place back in the 60s and 70s, they have permits north of like my home economy area, but in this area here, it's been platted. The city has some site plans. There's about 3 or 4 parcels that have a driveway shown on the site plan, but that's, of all the 20 driveways we have about 4 of them that are on some physical drawing or have been gone through some approval process in the past. But the rest of them are showing up they just showed up. And back in the day, there was a lot of gas stations. Pretty much all these parcels were a gas station at one time, the way it looks. And so that's where a lot of these ingress, egress came from, is from the gas stations.
Further questions? There is no, this is information only. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Krenko. Appreciate it.
Thank you much.
Moving right along, on 3.3, cost participation construction maintenance agreement, project 8604, shared use path, South 48th Street from 32nd Avenue South to 17th Avenue South. Mr. Hunter, good evening.
President Sandy, members of the council, this is looking to approve a cost participation construction maintenance agreement for shared use path on South 48th Street from 32nd Avenue to 17th Avenue South. This is a 10-foot shared use path, paving over an existing gravel path, tying into an existing shared use path. It is an 80% federally funded, and this is a standard agreement with the DOT. Any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Hunter? Moved by Kavami, second by Osowski. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.5, change order number 3, project 8549, upgrade storm sewer pump station number 184. Okay, good evening.
Good evening. This project is under construction right now. It's Pump Station 184. That's located over off of 55th Street and 6th Avenue. As part of the bid, we had an item there to pull the existing pumps and do an inspection of them, and we did, and all 4 pumps are failing. So at this time, we're looking to replace pumps 1 and 2. The replacement of these will last about 25 to 30 years. With the station being down, it kind of makes sense to do this work now. So looking tonight for approval of change order number 3 in the amount of $270,927. Also, I just want to mention with me tonight, I have Ben Williams with WFW. He's kind of taken over for Dale Burgum.
I move approval.
Any questions from Ms. Severson? Hearing none, there's a motion by Osowski, second by Weber. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item, Ms. Parvey, 3.6, wastewater treatment plant Phase 2 project 8569 contract amendment.
Good evening, Mr. Sandy, members of the committee. So we've been working with PKG on the improvements on at the wastewater treatment plant. On September 18th, we approved a contract with them for construction just to begin the foundation work and the excavation out at the wastewater treatment plant. We have been working on finalizing the Phase 2 designs, however, did recognize that if we were able to pre-procure the generator for the project, as well as begin the design for the membrane reactor system, that we would be further ahead. So we're looking at just an amendment to the contract that you approved on September 18th. It would be for $2.7 million. Most of that cost is tied to the generator that is about, I think it's 75 weeks out, 65 or 75 weeks out. So it is quite a ways out. We had been working on the generator for quite some time, but just were able to finalize our numbers for that. We will still bring back the rest of the Phase 2 project for you to review as the GMP, or the guaranteed maximum price for that project, within the next couple months.
I move approval.
Mr. Sandy, this is Ken. This is not uncommon for long lead items, so I would recommend approval.
Is that a motion, Mr. B?
Yes.
Thank you. There's a second by Osowski. Further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 3.7, Project 8652, 2024 wastewater fog abatement program. Sparby.
Thank you.
Oil and grease and everything
Yes.
else.
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, we've been working on the fats, oils, and grease or fog abatement. You just recently amended city code to help us further those actions. The fog abatement itself, we did put on an RFP and did receive 3 different proposals. The solutions group has been a group that we've been currently working with, and they did receive the highest points. We worked with our chemical engineering department at UND as well as our waterworks department to score those proposals. The other proposals came from Hawkins as well as in biogenetic technologies, if I said that correctly, excuse me. So, but the one that we're recommending to you tonight is through the Solutions Group for $147,480. We do have Jeremy Tangwell, who is the president of that company, on line 2, if you have any questions for us tonight.
I have a question, Ms. Parvey. In the staff report, it talked about how they're going to continue to try to find the culprits for our increased issues.
Yes.
I recall that we've also implemented some sort of a fee, not a fee, perhaps a fee, right?
We have increased the fees for our fats, oils,
Are
and
they
grease.
are they testing various areas around town in order to isolate different organizations to try to figure out who's causing the problems? Is that essentially what they're doing?
Yes. Yeah, we're actually treating in certain areas that we do have more fats, oils, and grease issues where our staff has to go out and clean the stations more frequently, as well as essentially jet areas in the sewer system to be able to allow us better flow so that we don't have backups with sanitary sewer overflows.
And do the businesses know that we're doing that?
Yes, we're actually working on a letter that will go out, I believe, within the next few weeks that will let them know that their fees have been adjusted.
Great.
Through this last.
I think ultimately what we want is people paying attention and doing things the right way and not having any problems. So I think if they know that we're going to implement this sort of a system, perhaps they will self-regulate.
Absolutely. Yep. We want to work with them to help them understand how they can reduce those impacts too.
Perfect.
I have some questions.
Ms. Osowski? Yes, ma'am.
So it says that you're going to continue with the daily dose of these chemicals. What exactly are they and what's in them? And the way I guess that I kind of picture it in my head is that they're kind of dumped down the sewer system to clear out the grease. And then these chemicals end up with our wastewater, correct?
Correct.
And then are all of these chemicals able to be cleaned and removed before, because we treat our water and then put it back in the river, correct?
Correct.
So I guess I'm just kind of wondering, do we have, one, what are these chemicals? And number 2, like, are we able to test the water that we put back into the Red River to see if they have any of these chemicals left in them?
Yes, I'm going to let Jeremy, if you're on and able to share information on what the chemicals are. We do have requirements for discharge, and we are currently meeting all of our discharge requirements for putting the water back into the river. So this process helps with the water quality. It actually helps more in our lagoon systems where we disinfect the water. But I'll let Jeremy talk about the chemicals specifically.
Mr. Tingwell? Sir? I don't know if are you on mute? Jeremy, hello?
He doesn't have the list of
Yeah, I know.
chemicals.
That's okay. No, we do have the material safety data sheets on the chemicals as well. And they are actually a microorganism that's actually activated by the water. So essentially, it's small organisms that actually eat away at the fats, oils, and grease. There's a much more scientific way to describe that. I can ask for him to send a message and send an email out to the group if you want the very specifics
I
of
mean,
that.
this is preliminary
Yeah,
approval, so
you can send me an email, that's
why
fine.
don't you send it to the whole group, please?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
And then is this like what other cities do? Like, is this a normal process? Like, are all these things pretty normal?
Yes. Fargo, I haven't connected with their collection staff, but for a while they were actually dosing the same chemical, different name for it, but other cities work directly with their food service establishments and go in and help them to reduce how much they're putting down the drain. It's been kind of a challenge in all cities, and so we're just, I guess, using the best technology that we can right now to be able to reduce impacts and what we actually do continue to send down the drain. So if there's other cities that are using this particular brand, I'm not aware of it, but we were at the North Dakota Water Pollution Control Conference, or actually Jeremy and Josh were there with their products and talked with a number of cities. I know Minot had inquired when they did a presentation, and there might be a couple others too that have really been struggling with just how to address the larger amounts that we deal with in the areas where we have a lot of restaurants that even though they're disposing of things properly, might still have some fats, oils, and grease that we deal with. Oh, sorry, Jeremy's on now.
That's okay. Yep. Is my microphone working now?
Yep.
Oh, great. I apologize, everybody. My microphone was not working.
I move approval.
So to answer your question, I apologize. Whoever answered that question as far as chemicals, we do not use chemicals. This is not a chemical. So there's nothing that has to be removed from this product. As a matter of fact, this is the same type of product that we actually use in like stormwater ponds and things, and it's a natural product. It's bacillus that actually produce their own enzymes. So they're going to break down the fats, oils, and grease for consumption, and the bacillus are going to consume the product, the fats, oils, and grease. Sorry.
Great, thank you very much for that explanation. Really appreciate it.
I move approval.
There's a motion by Osowski, second by Weber. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, item 3.8, Agassiz Water Users District Customer Buyout Agreement. Mr. Gosted.
Yeah, thank you. Members of the committee, the city entered into an agreement back in the year 2000 with Agassiz River Water District and Grand Forks Trail Water District at the time, dealing with issues when the city annexes certain property within what was called the city growth area. And when that happens, then the city will, when you annex, will take over the customers that are subject, in this case, to Agassiz River Water District. And so when we did the annexation in Highway 81, that triggered the payment to Agassiz. There's 25 customers out there. There's two components to the payment. One is a debt component, where they basically take the total debt that Agassiz owns divided by the number of customers and multiply that times the 25 customers. That amounted to a little over $21,000. Then there's a lost revenue component, taking the 25 customers, their water usage, applying the water rates that Agassiz has, then deducting cost of water, and then the annual debt service. And you multiply that by 2 for 2 years pursuant to the terms of the agreement, and that amount just short of $41,000. So the total payment for the 25 customers is $61,958.32. That payment will be made at the time we hook up the first customer out there. It's going to take some time. But it just seemed, from an accounting standpoint, a lot easier just to get the check to Agassiz, to be done with it, and we can move on. They'll service those customers, those 25 customers, as you progress, because they're right now putting in the water service. But once all the customers are hooked up or can be hooked up to the city water service, then Agassiz's service in that annexation area will terminate. Also, the agreement, if you recall, Agassiz had a water line that was temporarily moved in anticipation of our servicing. We granted them a license to put their line within our right-of-way at the time. That license will terminate under the terms of this agreement as well. So we'd just be looking for approval for the agreement. A couple of things to add is Agassiz has already, I attended their meeting last week, they've approved the agreement. And just want to also note that they were a good contracting partner, really easy to work with in coming up with the numbers and working through the agreement. So with that, just ask for approval.
Move approval.
Motion by Osowski, second by Weber. Any comments or questions? Hearing none.
Mr. Sandy.
Yes, Mr. V?
I'd just like to say so thanks to Todd Phelan and Dan Gust and working with the Agassiz staff. As was stated, I think this negotiation is a win-win. Agassiz recovers those costs. The city has full access to the accounts that we need for the future. And it's encouraging to hear that the negotiations went so well. Just wanted to make those additional comments.
Great, thank you, Mr. V. Any additional comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Weigel, anything for the good of the order?
No, thank you.
Mr. Veen?
No, nothing.
Mr. Osowski? Or Ms. Osowski? My apologies.
No, thank you.
No. Ms. Weber? No. Mr. Kavami?
No, sir.
Ms. Lunsky? No.
No, thank you.
We should say that Mr. Hallweger and Mr. Hunter both did a really good job presenting tonight, and thank them for their first time supporting the council. Appreciate it. Is there a motion to adjourn by Osowski? Second by Weber. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.